Hello and welcome to the Perpetual Traffic Podcast. This is your host, Ralph Burns, founder and CEO of Tier 11, alongside my awesome co-host,
Lauren E. Petrullo, founder of Mongoose Media.
And she is calling in from points unknown, Canada, Montreal. We're actually in two different countries.
Yeah, we are.
We're not even in the United States. I'm in Mexico, in Tulum. Actually, we're between like Cancun and Tulum, like in the middle of nowhere. Like we're in the middle of like a jungle, and then they just cut out this Unico resort, which is amazing. By the way, here for the Driven Mastermind with our old boy Qasim and a lot of the other dudes. But you're up in Canada, so we're in opposite ends. I walk out this door right here, and I just immediately start sweating. And it's only like 7 o'clock in the morning here. When you walk out your door, you're freezing your ass off. So
I am. I really am. I called you yesterday on the bike ride. I was like, I can't feel my fingers.
Yeah, she calls me last night. I'm going to this thing, this salsa dinner or whatever it was to teach people how to dance salsa, which I missed the whole thing because I was on the phone with you. But anyway, I'm like, what are you doing bike riding when it's like 40 degrees outside and you're freezing your hands? Like you're from Florida. That's not something a Floridian should be doing.
I feel like it was definitely less than that. I mean, I could see my air. I haven't seen my breath in a long time.
Yeah.
But it was fun. I really enjoyed it. I got to see.
Right.
Wow. Okay. Ralph.
I divulge too much.
No, it was cool. I got to see I got to do a tour of Montreal. I got to ride around some gardens. Like I was so here for it. And then I got to see the Olympic Stadium, which I thought was a bridge. My bad. But it was like, I mean, it's a really cool city. I'm enjoying observing how it's like a cousin of America. Like I know I'm not in the US. Well, at least I definitely know I'm not in Florida.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Everyone
signs
has their
are in
own
French
vibe.
and English, right? In Montreal or no?
Mostly French, I think.
Mostly French.
Yeah, but there's I went to this one neighborhood yesterday, which was a more Anglo neighborhood. The area I'm in now is a more French neighborhood. I mean, it's really cool. I think there's a lot more history I want to learn more about. But I even I mean, I crawled. I did a run up to this Montreal park. It had this amazingly breathtaking view of the city. And I was just
Montreal. Right.
Montreal.
Montreal. That's therefore the name. Yeah.
Yeah. Saw Mount Hillary. So I don't know. It's really, really cool city, and it's so different than flat Orlando. Like the only mountains we have in Florida are Space Mountain, Splash Mountain.
Those are real mountains, right? Those are American mountains.
Yeah.
If you ever get the chance, Quebec City is like going to France, like old Quebec City, and it's 3 or 4 hours, I believe. It's a trip, but you get enough of like the Canadian, the French culture in Montreal, which is actually really cool. And then when you go over to Toronto, it feels like an American city. At least it does for me.
For sure, it feels so American. Like I even went to Whitby, which is a suburb of Toronto, years ago, and I was like, nope, this is Colorado.
Right.
Yeah.
But
awesome. I had poutine.
Poutine.
I did.
You gotta have poutine when you're up in Canada. Unbelievable.
Good. Simple but effective.
Simple. It's highly cholesterolized.
Not compared to nacho fries that we have in the US, which are exploding with cheese and jalapenos. And
that's true. Yeah. Poutine. Yeah. Poutine. Anyway, if you go to Canada, get the poutine. 100%.
Now we're going to put a new message about a great case study.
A case study. Look at that. You're getting really good at this segue stuff on podcasting. People are like, why can they keep talking about where they are? We just want to get to the good stuff. All right. Well, today we're actually going to go through a case study. This is a case study I've never talked about here on this show. We will be presenting this in probably a different form at the Smart Marketer Conference, which is coming up at the end of October. I don't know if it's sold out or not, but I'll leave links in the show notes for our friend Molly Pittman. Anyway, we'll be speaking there. There's actually a great group of speakers. That is in Denver. Short notice here, but a little plug for them. We've been plugging it on our socials.
It's at the Denver Art Gallery.
Yeah.
like the Denver Museum of Art.
It's a cool location. That's like a total Ezra Firestone sort of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Their ads, I don't know if anyone has listened to, like, their ads have been really impressive. They've had so much diverse creative. Like they have an ad that was like a plane ticket that gets you to the Denver event. They like actually, so I totally stole this idea because I found it so effective. They had an ad that was like a conversation, like a screenshot of a message. And I was just
Mm.
like, the creative that they were doing for that conference was really good.
Like a text message, like back and
Yeah, like a
forth.
message back
Yeah.
and forth. And it was
I
like
love
talking
those.
about how, oh, is this only for e-commerce brands or something? And it was just done so simply, so well, straight to the point, that I've been
Yeah.
recommending that same creative because it just was so thumb stopping for me that I thought, if you are listening to this, and even if you don't go on the page so you can get remarketed, because their ads are really impressive right now.
Well, we'll leave links in the show notes to some of their ads if we can find them. Or I know actually we can. So we'll search for them and then put them in the show notes because I have seen those. Those are really really
Mm.
good. Um, one part of today's presentation is is a lot of creative and how important creative is, and we've talked about creative quite a bit here, especially on this last week's show when we had the other Lauren, not Lauren Petrullo, but we had Lauren Schwartz on with John Moran, and she's our new creative strategist, formerly of Loft 325, now of Tier 11. And it was a great show. If you didn't listen to that show, go back and listen to it and actually watch it on YouTube as well. Of course, you can get Perpetual Traffic over on YouTube at perpetualtraffic.com/YouTube. Creative is such a huge part of everything that we're doing right now. And it's such a big difference maker. And the best part of this case study here is that the creative was so simple. It was literally like dog whistle calling out your avatar. They just hadn't done it before. That's the thing I love about this is that we took this company from just about 4 million in sales, a little bit more, to well over 6 million. So not a huge organization, but they're backed by like a 9-figure company,
Mm.
and they specifically sell types of cases for what we found for people who want to store really valuable items like firearms. So, for
Mm.
example, one of the cases in this particular case study,
Yeah, I was
cases
like,
for a
oh,
case
cases
study.
on
It's a lot
cases.
of cases. It's like cases on case studies. Is one of their ones where it actually just holds individual, very popular firearms.
Mm.
So, and you have to be really careful with that, obviously, on Meta and a lot of the platforms.
Very
So there is
sensitive subject.
a very sensitive subject. So we're going to whip through this. There's a fair amount we can get into, but today we're just going to give you a high level. And in our next sort of phase of perpetual traffic, we're going to be doing a lot of case studies. We're going to get back to a lot of the tactical and strategic stuff, but also highlighting some of the things that we've been doing inside our respective agencies and things that you should be doing. If you're a director of marketing or a VP of marketing, you should be directing your team to do this. Or if you are an agency, you should be doing it, or don't do it and just don't do it anymore because there's way too many agencies out there. And if you're a crappy agency, don't take this stuff and try and call it your own. um, you know, convince your customers just to hire Tier 11 instead. I'm sick of talking about crappy agencies. Anyway, we've had a lot of talk about that this week because there's been a lot of conversation about businesses that have been burned so many times by different agencies. And it's like,
Mm.
unfortunately, now it's a weeding out process. There's a lot of smaller agencies that are just saying this is no longer worth it because it's hard to maintain clients and it's hard to get the data. It's hard to get the tracking. Everything's hard. So unless you actually have the systems, this space ain't an easy one to crack. So unless you've been doing it for quite some time. So anyway, so I'll get off that soapbox. What we'll cover here today is traffic transformation, data power, something that we call the Tier 11 Data Suite, which is a kick-ass data solution that you can only get from us. Sorry, but you can get the components separately. And we're going to talk about that a little bit here today. We'll talk about that a lot in future shows. And then obviously the creative that converts. So part one, the traffic transformation. So they had some issues here that we we'll sort of separate this out into sort of problem then solution. The problem is that their Shopify revenue had been declining. Their gross sales was about 1.4 million in the second quarter
Mm.
of 2020 of it's 2023. So obviously they're on the decline to a certain degree. The returning customer rate was way down by 55%, and they were not fulfilling as many orders. So basically they were just stuck. They
Okay.
had gotten their internal teams to a certain point and had not just been able to get to that next level of scale. So one of the biggest things is that their NCAC, their new customer acquisition cost, one of the MPIs, Lauren Petrullo,
Yeah.
and their overall CAC, which is, you know, customer acquisition cost, which includes returning and new. We also call it ACAC inside Wicked Reports, was going in the wrong direction. So increasing over time, as you can see, from 68 in January all the way up to 109. So they were
But
having
even, sorry, go back, because even if you look at that, for those that are not watching on YouTube, you should, because these numbers are saying they increased their ad spend $50,000 and their NCAC went up like
yeah,
30%,
yeah, a lot. So you can see
25.
sort of what they were doing here, and it was, it was ugly. And sometimes that happens. You spend more and your NCAC goes up. So how do you counter that? Well, you have to counter it by figuring out, like doing a diagnosis, doing a deep dive audit into what's going on with their individual accounts, what's going on with their business, what their product mix is. So they really believe that their 2024 growth was being hindered by market saturation and competition of their best selling product. That's what they thought. They decided they should diversify away from that best selling product to try to get additional parts of the market, which sometimes is a good solution, sometimes is not. And you'll see why in just a second. So we source analyze this. We are also getting less B2B orders. They're a B2C plus B2B. Usually B2B is larger orders in bulk. They were
Okay.
not capitalizing on that at all. And they hadn't really targeted that market specifically. We won't get into that part of it here today, but this all led to declining sales overall. Is this making sense so far?
100%.
Okay. So reason two was Meta was over indexing on the 65 plus audiences. They weren't capping
Oh,
out. So when they really look at their demographic is really between 45 and 55, some 34 to 45, and then obviously below that. But 65 and up, when they analyze the source, we actually did this inside of Shopify. We found that folks with a specific demographic were not the ones that were buying. And we also verified that through the platforms, Meta specifically. So 65 plus was a huge portion of their ad spend,
which
but
is
they were
that
just
blue
looking
line that you're
that blue
showing
line.
here. And this is a screenshot from.
This is a screenshot from Shopify, I believe.
Okay.
Yep. Oh, this is inside Meta. So this is one of those reports inside Meta that shows their demographic breakdown.
And
So
so if someone's listening and they want to double check that they're not over indexing on one audience, they can go inside and pull the same report
exactly,
to go
exactly,
after the audience segment. So again, for those not watching, this is hard, but there's a blue trend line that has gray arrows showcasing where the ad spend is being distributed to an audience that you found on Shopify to not correlate to purchases.
correct.
That is frustrating. You're spending money on the wrong audience.
Your friend, yeah. So Meta tells you, "Well, just let us do all the targeting for you." Um, Not really. I mean, you have to put guardrails
Mm-hmm.
on even Meta. Like the platforms and the algorithms for both Google and Meta are super smart, but you also need human intervention to be able to look at things like this. And once again, if you're listening to this and you want to get the visual representation, I highly recommend you go over to perpetualtraffic.com/YouTube, subscribe to our channel. We're going to be doing a lot of these sort of screen shares where you can learn and listen by watching, but we'll try and explain it as much as we possibly can here in the audio version. We also found that Meta was increasing spend on Facebook over Instagram. Surprise, surprise, the older demographic is largely, I wouldn't say all the time, but in this space, it was largely on Facebook. So
Mm-hmm.
this is one of those trends where this is all inside Meta. You just have to be able to analyze the data. Notice we haven't gotten into any of the media buying tactics yet. We're just sort of doing our analysis, trying to figure out like what's the problem, like
Yeah.
what are some of the keys, some of the keys that or clues that are leading to a potential solution, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so reason number 4 is they said they wanted to diversify their price, so they diversified their product line, and sometimes that's great. However, they had a top level product here, and some of this will be blurred out, obviously, to protect the privacy of this client. But their top product, which, if you look back, this is in March, a March look back 2024 to 2023, they sold 78,000 of their top product, but that was down 41%. Now, their top product is very specific, and it's for a very specific type of individual and a very specific rabid niche, which we'll get into in just a second here. But it's also one of their top 3 most profitable products.
Oh, yeah.
So going back to MPIs, marketing performance indicators, like we care about if we sell more of your top product, but it's the least profitable, sometimes that's an okay solution. But what we found is that this is one of their most profitable products. The more they actually manufactured is through their owned company. This is a
Mm.
subsidiary of a very large organization. Uh, they made a better margin. Their gross profitability, their cost of goods sold came down. Obviously, all things being equal, when your cost of goods sold goes down, typically your profit on a product will increase. So they were moving in a different direction, saying, oh, we should diversify, as opposed to let's double down on what really works and what we know the public wants. We just have to dial in the messaging. Does that make sense?
No, it makes so much sense.
So, a lot of people will say, don't put all your eggs in one basket. And I highly agree with that to a degree. I say, put all your eggs in one basket, one at a time, and watch it as closely as you possibly can, especially if that thing is the thing that's making you money. So the solution was found here. So what we did, and this is just the reason I love this case study, Lauren, is because it's so simple. It's like, just cut off the 65 plus people in your targeting. So that's all we did. So as you can see over on perpetualtraffic.com/YouTube, you can see this graph, the top 65 plus. As soon as we took over in, I believe it was June, July this past
Yeah.
year, we just cut that traffic out completely.
So sorry, just really quickly iterating that, like that 40% increase that you talked about at the beginning is just over the course of 6 months? Not even?
40% is over 6 months. Yeah. Yeah, that's
Dang.
actually a good point. I was like
was-
year over year, because we really haven't been with these guys that long. So, yeah, the 40% increase happened in a very short period of time, which I would say results are not typical. But
Yes, we put in all that lawyer disclosures and all that stuff as it pertains to case studies. But what you did here was you leveraged data that's within Meta, and you leveraged data within an outside party, Wicked Reports, to
Yep.
identify huge opportunities where Meta's AI was wrong.
Right.
And you
Right.
found the lever that made the biggest impact. And that impact is $1 million a quarter.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a ton. I mean, they're well on their way. They never thought they would do 6 or 7 million this year. They're like, the sky's the limit. We're going to be 8 figures plus in 2025. So it'd be cool to come back and do a secondary case study sometime in 2025.
Secondary case study?
Case study. Exactly. And we're adding services to them as well. Like we've added more creative. We're now looking at adding email. We're doing SEO. We're doing all these other things. This is just a paid traffic
Yeah.
case study, but it's like they're like, we know there's so much more that's out there thanks to you all, and we had the perception that we were really tapping out our market, which was not the case. There was just, I keep saying like the case, but anyway, I
That
can't
was not
stop
the
it saying the
sitch.
case. It was not the sitch. Yeah. Anyway, so this is a super simple one. Like, look in your data, it's right there. Figure out who your buyers are. And if there is a demographic that's dragging you down, it might be 18 under, it might be 25 and under, it could be a lot of different things. This is sort of basic stuff. So we went back to pushing this particular case, and you can see here, we immediately, as soon as we made that the centerpiece of their ads and of all their marketing, um, even though we had reduced their budget to a certain degree, we immediately realized a 9% gain in their best-selling product. Remember, this is their best-selling product with their best profit margin. So we're also communicating with them on a weekly basis on their financials. Like, we get involved in their financials. How are the financials looking? Yeah, we're selling more of, case 801. However, how does it look like on the inside? Your cost of goods sold, like, where does that look like? What's your gross profitability? What's your net? Like, how are we doing this? And the numbers started to really sort of move in the right direction because we were focused on the best selling product. What we also found is that when they sold that best selling product, they also, you can see here, this other trunk was like an upsell for that. So they started to get an upsell on the back end from, we would retarget those buyers of case 801 for the next logical step. Like, hey, if you get this case, you can also get this one. So you can see here, there's another product that had a 23% increase just because it was sort of a logical, lifetime value enhancer. So just really simple things, like little levers to move the needle. And sometimes this is all you need to do. Like, sometimes doing this isn't that complex. It's doing the work ahead of time to be able to analyze the data and figure out, okay, here's the problem, but here's a potential solution. So in this case, demographics. And also, let's focus on your highest volume, most popular product, and really target the market where it is most effective and resonates with that market. And we'll get into the creative in just a second here. Make sense so far? All right. So we help them to produce creatives suited to those key audiences. So obviously, we're no longer in that older demographic. We started to use, and this is one of the keys, especially now on the creative side of the equation, is Facebook and Instagram Reels. We started to use a lot of video, and we'll get into that in just a second. So you can actually
In
see,
August, and this is showing you started doing it in August.
yeah.
So you had been
So
together
this
for
was
June, July,
right.
been strategizing, doing key identifications, and then implementing mid-August. You created those reels right away from those opportunity pockets.
Yeah, so we sort of focused on a couple of different things. We're like, all right, well, let's focus on these couple levers. Those are moving the needle in the right direction. Hey, we also noticed you're in a slightly low, slightly younger demographic. You're being over-indexed on Facebook. What is the more popular placement right now on both Facebook and Instagram, Instagram especially, which is Reels? So it's like, let's do more video content. They had just done static image ads, just showing the product, like, here's the product kind of thing. And this is classic. I'm sure you see it all the time. It's like, e-commerce company, here's my product, buy it. That's not really a reason, unless maybe I know of your brand and I'm in the buying mode, or I'm in
Yeah.
that 1% to 2% who's ready to buy now. You only get a tiny percentage of the market if it's like, here's my product, go buy it type of creative. You have to show the difference. You have to talk to the avatar. You have to understand what it is that they want. And we'll get into some of that creative here in just a second. Just simple things that make sense and that produce results. So let's talk about results here. Like I said, we're going a bit high level here. We had significant year over year Shopify growth driven by direct to
For
consumer. Once
those who
again,
can't see, it's a 57% increase of gross sales over time.
yeah,
It's actually not six, it's 6.5 million. So you're shortening yourself even a little in that regard. But and then the
6.5 million.
orders is 72% increase. That is life changing.
72% increase. That's order fulfilled. That's not all new customers. That is some returning customers because we did do retargeting. I mean, there's multifacets to this, but
But even this, you're looking at a returning customer rate decrease, which is obviously then an increase of your new customer
good point.
acquisition.
Good
So
point.
it's people that, even though, yes, you're not servicing them, this is an industry where you kind of buy the product once and you might buy additional accessories.
Yep.
But this is like remarkable because you have new customers, new profit, and better profitability because they're obviously buying that product that has the greatest margins, and people don't need two, four, or five cases of the same thing.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, we found like the gateway product for them was that case 801. Like that was the thing that really sort of drove a lot of the top line metrics. And yeah, not quite as much on the returning, but there is, a significant amount of returning customers, but we really focused on NCAC.
So in
Like,
this, like too, like you can see too, like the reels and stuff that you provided. That's the creative that drove so much attention. Gave a lift on Facebook and Instagram. Shop orders like that gets used in ads, but distributed, of course, elsewhere for
mhm.
this halo lift of 57% increase year over year.
Yeah, that's pretty significant. Like this is not, I mean, a 20% increase year over year. They were flat to down. Let's not forget, like they were frustrated. They were like, we think we've tapped out our market." We were like, no, 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 no,
There's so many
no.
brands that think that. And like with increased
Yeah.
competition, with brands from overseas penetrating the US market, if you're a US based brand, you're not just competing against your neighbors, you're
Hmm.
competing against sometimes even bigger wallets that can be faster to implement and can copycat you. And this is a feeling I know I talk to a lot of brands about. Like, we've tapped the market. How might we penetrate more? No, we've hit everyone possible. And you're like, have you?
Yeah. You really, yeah. And I think creative is such a huge part of that. And we'll get into that in just a second. But you mix it with some smart data driven decisions, which is let's not focus on a demographic that isn't going to buy. Let's focus on the demographic that does buy. Like, what does your ideal buyer look like? There was tons of conversations about ICP. We did a creative strategy framework. ICP is ideal customer profile or persona, whichever you want to choose. The point is that we really started to focus in on the the firearm niche, really. Like, and that's just one niche. So that's what we really realized is that those are the most rabid buyers, and they had not highlighted that in any of their messaging, and that was a big game changer
We
here.
even
You
just think
can
about that industry. It's like the older audience, they probably are loyal to brands that they know about
100%.
before. And you've got emerging soldiers all the time. You've got folks that are returning home from overseas and they're now back to civilian life. Those are going to be younger customers. And once you capture them in, you'll get the loyalty. So that 65 plus audience, they already know where to shop. They're used to going to the brick and mortar store anyways, and they have the relationships with the brands directly they've known for 20 to 40 years. So even
Yeah.
then, like you're talking about, like for me, looking at this case study, the biggest impact is you guys go into fundamentals and foundations that I think a lot of agencies, media buyers, and not to their fault, but when you're an individual person, you can only look at so much. And you're able to look at the higher level of it foundationally is supporting what we need to do, or what a lot of times we'll see with marketers is they get distracted by a shiny object, a new tool, something that's going to make a lift, and then you start doing the things that don't make you money and promoting the products with lower margins.
Yeah. Right. So, I mean, I think you have to take a larger view. It's not all about just media buying and what's in-app performance. You have to understand from the business itself what's really driving things, and also having those internal conversations with the finance people. Those are also the people that are writing you checks as an agency. So it's like it's not. I mean, it serves a dual purpose. You're trying to get towards whatever their goal is. They have a top line goal here, they have a profitability goal. We know what those goals are. Our number one focus is achieving of that goal. How do you do it? Well, you don't do it just through a couple of media buying tricks. You do it through a multi-layered approach. One of the big things that we did here is we use data. So we use top line metrics and something called benchmarking, which we have to have John Moran on here to talk about benchmarking at some point to go into it further. We don't necessarily have the time to go into it here today, but I'll give you sort of a high level view of it. Obviously, top line metrics, NCAC. These are a lot of the MPIs. We talk to our clients about the MPIs. So if you haven't got the MPI checklist, for crying out loud, go over and get it at perpetualtraffic.com/MPI, so you understand exactly what we're talking about. These are the things that really matter to most businesses. In my experience, if I talk to 100 customers, what do they want? They want new customer acquisition. They want a media efficiency ratio that is within a range that is palatable for them based upon profitability, LTV, AOV, new AOV, gross profit, and profit margin. At the end of the day, like, profit margin is sort of the purpose of business. Like, if you don't have profit, you don't really have people, you don't really have a business. So all of these metrics on this pretty slide here point back to the fact that we want to focus on your profitable products and make you as profitable as possible, but also help you achieve your top line metrics. So how we sort of did this is actually sort of a Google Analytics report. We monitored blended top line metrics. So this is actually, I'm going to take this, Kevin, I'm going to take this slide out. I don't like this slide. Let me get rid of that. All right. So how did we do it? We did this through what's called benchmarking. So benchmarking is comparing your top line to platform results. So inside any third-party attribution software, obviously we use Wicked Reports. Like I said, we combine it with a couple of other things to give us incredible visibility. We wanted to find out what a good month looked like so that we can optimize multi-channel. At first, we were sort of talking about Meta specifically, but it's like, what does a good month on Meta look like? If we started to roll in more YouTube ads, if we started to roll in more Google ads, how do we know that Meta is doing well on its own and it's not being blurred by other platforms? And so we use this concept called benchmarking, which is you take a snapshot in time and say, what does a good month look like? And then we'll compare that good month with NCAC in this particular case. And a good month of NCAC for Facebook specifically is $115 NCAC. So we would benchmark that because we knew we were getting a lot of the conversions downstream on their Google ads, their Microsoft ads, some on email, even text, SMS to a lesser degree. They haven't really started to do TikTok quite as much, but the concept of benchmarking is one of the keys to be able to look at all the channels, because you're never going to have 100% visibility on all your marketing channels. But if you know what a good month looks like on Facebook, you can refer back to it once you start to add the other channels, because the other channels are going to start to muddy some of your metrics inside third-party attribution softwares. And like I said, this is a shot from Wicked Reports that we use. So benchmarking, like I said, comparing top line to platform results. We can do a whole show on benchmarking. We'll have John Moran come back and use that. He obviously is overseeing the strategy for this particular client here. And it's one of the reasons why we felt comfortable being able to add in other additional platforms in addition to Meta. They were very Meta focused to start. After we installed Data Suite is a combination of an edge technology from a company called Blotout with our own data warehouse, which is first-party data, plus Wicked Reports. We call it the edge, the warehouse, and the interface. And those three things working together, we wrote the integration between all three of those individual platforms. It allows us to have greater visibility and feed that data back into the actual platforms themselves, which is the key. Because most third-party attribution softwares, even if you get Wicked Reports off the shelf, or Hyros, or Triple Whale, or even Northbeam to a certain degree, a lot of this data is either modeled or it just doesn't exist. You get a lot of unattributed, a lot of direct traffic. You don't know where that comes from. And the problem is that the data that they're bringing into those third-party attribution softwares are being blocked by browsers, by pop-up blockers, by cookie degradation, by ATT prompts, all of those things.
Do you mean
Unless
everything that happened with iOS?
everything that happened with iOS. And that all happens on the browser level. If you can capture your data, what we call the edge, or we use in this case, this technology from blotout, which has been around for years. Like, this technology has never been applied to marketing. It's one of the reasons why blotout is one of the fastest growing MarTech platforms right now. They just supply the piping, but they don't have an interface. So we take that, grab, literally, if you think about it this way, when a user is going to your site, they hit your browser and they're immediately blocked by pop-up blockers, by ATT prompts, by cookie degradation. But if you can capture their information in the parking lot before they actually enter the store, that's the edge. And so this edge tag technology, and we can leave links in the show notes as to what this actually is, allows us to then feed that back into our data warehouse, and then that is then fed into Wicked Reports. So the information that we get inside Wicked is cleaner, and it eliminates a lot of that unattributed, like upwards of 90%. There's another case study we'll show here in the show that we 10x like decline, like hundreds of thousands, 114,000 visitors were unfound. Nobody knew where they were attributed to. And we found, like, when we installed Data Suite, that number was reduced down to 14,000. That's a 10x
So,
decrease.
sorry, in that decrease, so you went from, so you identified 90% of that traffic and were able to attribute it to the appropriate channel so that you can make better data-driven decisions.
Correct.
Because if you are just guessing, it's likely guessing wrong, and the different ad platforms are going to take advantage of that ignorance and
Yep.
make assumptions that will cost you your margin.
Absolutely. Or they just won't, you just won't see the data inside the individual platforms because of because of attribution window issues. Like, past
Sure.
28 days, like, Facebook isn't going to show you anything. Like, if somebody clicked on a
Mm-mm.
Facebook ad and then 29 days later they bought, you won't see that inside Facebook, but you will see it inside Wicked, as long as you have this edge technology. Well, you will see it
Well,
in Wicked,
yeah. But what
but
you
you
essentially
won't see
built
all of it.
was you're stopping that gap. You're
You're
providing that visibility to something that, like, if you're listening and you don't have, you're like, wow, I want this. Well, me too. Except that's like a function that you guys built this specifically and only. So going back to the bigger conversation of where a lot of media buyers are getting too much put on them, they can't do everything that you're doing because you have built a team of engineers to
Yeah.
develop that integration between the software so you can ultimately make smarter marketing decisions that an individual media buyer or a smaller agency would never be able to support.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's a lot that you can do without this, but what you're doing is eliminating that chance to guess. And how long did it take you to build? I mean, I imagine this is something you've been working on essentially since iOS in 2021.
It was built a little over a year ago. The integration between Blotout and Wicked was built about a little over a year ago, and it's been we started running it on 3 clients. These guys were one of them. There's a couple other case studies which we can show the same sort of thing, and we started to see the results. Immediately, we saw an uplift in EMQ scores. inside Facebook, which were like, that's great, but what does that really mean? What it means is that we're actually capturing the data and then sending it back to the algorithms to make the algorithms smarter. But most importantly, through the interface and Wicked Reports, we don't want to build our own Wicked Reports. We just made Wicked Reports better because we're capturing more data. They don't have that solution. So the interesting part of it is the software integration between all three of these, the data warehouse, the edge, through Blowout, and through Wicked. That integration was written by our programmers, and that's exclusive to us, which is great. I've talked to a couple of people here at this conference. They're like, where can I buy it? I'm like, well, you have to hire us to do it. And I'm not saying like you should, but if you want to see visibility inside your data, like this is an incredible tool. And we used it here. And we installed Data Suite for these guys like mid this past year. So we haven't even seen like the full year over year results. We're just looking at like from 6 months forward. So anyway, we'll do a whole show on Data Suite upcoming because we've got some really cool stuff we can show you there. Let's get back to like, I hate data driven. I should have changed this because I like data derived creative decisions. So we looked at their creative and we found, they were using just sort of, I wouldn't say that, boiled chicken, sort of milk toast kind of creative, just, hey, like, here's our stuff. But we use tools like Motion to analyze key metrics, Hook, watch time, conversion scores, identified as sort of effective elements, spotting high performing components and areas for improvement. We did continuous creative optimization. We focused our resources strategically, like I said, on the cases that were the highest profitability, that were specific to firearm owners. And through all of this data, we then created creative that works. And the quality creative on paid social, as you can see here, Instagram, they weren't really leveraging Instagram. They were over-indexed on Facebook. So we created reels specifically, videos specifically that called out the avatar, but also did a fair amount of just, of image-based ads that were a lot more specific to the pain points and the desires of the biggest market that they served, which was, in this case, firearm owners. So, like I said, these are very, very challenging niches sometimes to get your copy right. Well, actually, I'll show you some of the copy examples here so that you don't get into trouble with Mother Meta. Here is some of the winning creatives. This is specifically to some of the paid social ones. Some of the video ads, some of the impact of the video ads, especially reels, month over month. This is really recent data. This is from August into September. We got our cost per purchase, which is our CAC, from 121 down to 55. And then we're able to maintain that in that range with a really good like in-app ROAS, as you can see here. So you can start to see the impact of some of these video ads. And this is in an in-platform screenshot here. So yes, we use the third-party data elements, but we also compare it to what we're seeing in-app. And that's where that benchmarking sort of comes into play. We use both platforms in order to make these types of decisions, in order to focus on what creative is working the best. And it was clear to us that the quality creative was just tapping into Meta's auction equation. Like this is a screenshot of what and how Meta's algorithm actually works to create total value. It's user value, estimated action rate, advertiser bid, which equals total value. And the higher your total value, the greater impressions and the greater conversions you ultimately get. So we started to see those video ads, that creative, start to have huge impact on some of the other channels. So once again, we wanted to make sure that we benchmarked a good month on Facebook, but then how is our scaling of ads on Meta going to affect some of the other channels? We immediately started to see a lift, and there's a screenshot here of how it impacted their Microsoft ads, how it impacted their YouTube ads, how it impacted their
Everything.
Google ads, everything. It
Email,
started to lift
everything.
the whole, like, rising tide is raising all ships, because you're going top of funnel. People are then Googling, they're YouTubing, they're
This
maybe
is like end of
searching
the
over on,
world rising tide right now. This is
right.
like you need Noah's Ark.
Yeah, tons of new visits. We've talked about ECPNV, we've talked about new visits, new customer visits. Like, this is all in the focus of just, like, getting new customers in the door, but also using all the channels to work together. And that's the key here, is that you have to be able to look at one channel, start there. We started at Meta. We know that's where top of funnel is. We know that's where their customer exists. And then it was a matter of monitoring the other channels and making sure that we were getting the lift that we were looking at. So I've referred to the creative a couple of times. I've only got a couple minutes here left. Is that before and after, just to give you an idea, before they were featuring any product, not specific products, weren't really talking to the avatar, travel confidently and effortlessly with our heavy duty wheeled case. We changed that over to calling all firearm owners, dog whistle call out to a very specific avatar. We focused on the top 80% of the product. Like, that product on the right hand side was their best selling product, talking about that, but also specifically in our copy, in our images, to firearm owners. And you can say calling all firearm owners. As soon as you say gun owners, you are going to get dinged.
Meta
However,
says, no way.
no way. Sorry. Try something else. Reliable for expensive weaponry. Like, great wording here from the
Versus
creative team.
the previous one, I mean, you're just saying the name of a product. Like, there's
Yeah, it's
no
like,
context to what that is at all, where you're going after the benefit before
yeah,
you're doing the name of a product, which is feature forward. And here you've got benefit driven copy that tells someone what transformation they're going to get out of this.
100%. Yeah. So that's the key. Uh, Another example, on the left-hand side, another type of case, not their best-selling case, didn't speak to the particular audience groups. It's just a picture of a case. Go buy it.
I mean, this is like what I put my hurricane prep stuff in.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
Like, this
100%.
is just, I don't know what type of storage it is, but it looks like just something that you can use for the garage. Whereas
Yep.
this next one, you're showcasing the application. Like, this is, I mean, if you're not watching, you're doing yourself a disservice, because the opportunity here is just how might you better tell a story. And yeah, this messaging is spot on, Ralph. So good.
Yeah. So the left-hand side, I mean, the messaging is just sort of boiled. I hate boiled. I really enjoy boiled chicken. But anyway, it's very bland. But this one, even on the creative side, like, the creatives are pretty much, you're still showing the product. However, you're saying you're highlighting benefits, American made, reliable for expensive weaponry, like calling out that avatar. Oh, I have expensive weaponry, calling out all firearm owners, presenting a specific problem. Hey, like, you have these expensive firearms, you want to be able to store them and carry them, like, not throwing them in the back of your truck. You know what I mean? Like, you need a case like this to protect these things, which are so important and so vital and so personal to this particular target audience.
Yeah, I mean, there's
Same
some
thing
that's
here.
going to be legacy stuff. Like, you've inherited, this is something that your grandfather had or was. There are memories associated with a lot of that. So it's that protection you're tapping into, the emotional need, not the, I don't even know what the opposite of that is. Your basic needs of, like, here you go, like cavemen, here is case, enjoy,
Yeah.
versus why this case is a lasting quality investment.
Yeah, yeah. And here's another example. Like, look at the left hand side. The left hand side is just not even benefits; it's features: dust, water, dust, and crush proof. Um, these are. I believe that's not a video. The one on the right hand side is much more native style. You've got sort of the avatar coming out talking specifically. These are specifically designed for reels, both for Facebook and Instagram. This is one of the videos here, set the standard at the range before you even shoot. Like, you are talking to somebody who is, that is their thing. You are talking to gun owners here. So on the left-hand side, you're really talking to no one. So very, very important. So suitability was sort of how we described this one. Last but not least, this is our final slide here. Thanks to our proven traffic on the D2C side, the business has grown 40% year over year. And we did reduce the B2B section, and that's sort of our next phase. So we're not done with this yet. This is literally like we are halfway through the whole process, and it's all upside from here. Like, we've just tapped into one avatar and got them a 40% lift. Just imagine what we can do if we take individual cases and then talk to those specific avatars for other specific things. Just that alone, I think, will easily get them to 8 figures in 2025, which we're pretty excited about. That plus this data visibility thing, which I know I glossed over that quite a bit, but we'll do a whole show on Data Suite and use some case studies there as well. So that's the case study, Lauren E. Petrullo.
The case study of cases.
The case study of cases. We're going to do a series of this. Myself and Lauren actually going back and forth on these kinds of things, getting very tactical, but also strategic. Like, there's a fair amount of strategery that went into this. It's not just like, hey, let's just start doing cool videos.
Right.
Like, we looked at the data and analyzed it and then made the decisions that we made. Data-derived decisions based upon what the data was showing us.
This is awesome.
Hopefully you all have enjoyed this case study on cases. Definitely check out our YouTube channel over at perpetualtraffic.com/YouTube. I think especially in the coming weeks, that's going to be important, Lauren, for them to see it.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's also the most important time of the year. So if you are trying to be strategic, you're trying to capitalize on an expensive and hyperactive buying season, you should be looking at what's working now. And what we'll be showing these case studies is what's been built. And like, honestly, it's not something that you can do overnight. It's progression towards perfection. And like what you've talked about, if nothing else you take away from the show is like tap into your audiences within Meta and then look against who you know your customers are that are purchasing, and just make sure that you're not being over indexed on an age segment. And then once you have and empower yourself with that data, there's so much more you can do, especially when you bring in the MPIs, you're leveraging a tool like Wicked Reports against your CRM, and then you bring in the strategery and data suite tools only Ralph gets, like, But this is great. Good job, Ralph.
That's cool. Well, I've got to go catch a boat. So
a yacht.
A yacht. Anyway, and we're going to do a podcast from that yacht. So
with your favorite person in the whole world?
No, he's my second favorite person in the whole world.
Okay. He's your least, he's definitely not the funniest.
He's definitely not the funniest. No doubt about it. All right, I'm going to go see him right now to make sure he understands he's not the funniest person. So wherever you listen to podcasts, please leave a review. Share this with your friends. Let's get more digital marketers out there doing this stuff the right way. Hopefully this has shed some light on inside what we do inside Tier 11. If you're interested in hiring us, you know where to find us. So thank you so much, Lauren, for calling in from chilly Canada. And so on behalf of my awesome co-host, Lauren E. Petrullo.
Ciao.
Until next show, see ya.